Suna was an ordinary student living an ordinary life. One day, while cleaning out her locker, she found a pair of unfamiliar glasses lying inside. There was no name, no sign of ownership, and it clearly didn't belong to her. After a moment of hesitation, she placed the glasses in her bag and hurried home. That evening, Suna decided to try on the mysterious glasses. The moment she put them on, she began to see red threads floating above everyone's heads, including her own. It was something she had never seen before. Confused at first, she eventually let her curiosity take over. Just then, her uncle happened to walk past the living room. Suna looked up at his head and froze. The red threads above him were far more numerous than those above anyone else. This was surprising, considering her uncle had always been known as an honest and upright man. The next morning, her uncle offered to drive her to school. Out of instinct, Suna wore the glasses again. The red threads above his head hadn't changed. In fact, they seemed even more tangled than before. Without saying much, she refused the ride and chose to walk. Questions began forming in her mind, questions she didn't dare ask out loud. Over the next few days, Suna grew accustomed to wearing the glasses. Slowly, the strange object gave her a sense of courage she had never felt before. In the school corridors, she could see people's secrets with just a glance. One day, while descending the stairs, Suna spotted 4 girls who had bullied her relentlessly. They were the ones who had made her life miserable for so long. Above their heads, the red threads were entangled in far greater numbers than anyone else's. Suna felt both disgust and curiosity. She wondered who they had been connected to. Driven by this curiosity, she followed the path of the threads. That was when she witnessed something that completely changed her perspective. A teacher who had always acted formal and respectable was secretly involved in an inappropriate relationship with one of the bullies. Suddenly, everything made sense. Suna now understood why no one ever defended her. Those bullies had protection from someone in authority. During the next break, the bullies approached her again, trying to start trouble. But this time, Suna didn't flinch. Calmly, she put on the glasses once more. She grabbed one of them by the hand and gave a quiet warning to stay away. The warning was ignored. One of them kicked her, knocking her to the ground. That night, Suna quietly followed one of the bullies. She watched from a distance until the girl met up with the language teacher in front of a hotel. Without hesitation, Suna snapped a photo with her phone. Now she had something that could shift the balance. She sent the picture to the bully, trying to blackmail them into leaving her alone. But the response was unexpected. The bullies showed no fear. As minors, they knew they wouldn't face serious consequences. It was the teacher who would be in real danger. The next day, Suna took a bolder step. She sent the photo directly to the teacher, the same one who had always shielded the bullies. In her message, she demanded 20 million in exchange for silence. That morning, she called the bully into the teacher's office, pretending to scold her over academic issues. In reality, they were discussing the new threat that had just landed. The teacher was stunned. He had always believed his relationship with the students was well hidden. He couldn't imagine how Suna had discovered it. But Suna remained composed. With the mysterious glasses, power had begun to shift into her hands. In a short time, Suna became the most influential student in school. Even the popular kids, those who had never noticed her before, now started approaching her. But behind this sudden rise, Suna failed to realize someone had been watching her every move. One day in the school restroom, a girl approached her. Her gaze locked onto the glasses Suna was wearing. With a steady voice, she asked where Suna got them. Suna answered with a lie. The new student didn't believe her that easily. With a swift motion, she snatched the glasses from Suna's hands and put them on. Instantly, she began to describe the secrets behind the red threads, things that, until now, only Suna could see. Calmly, the short-haired girl started listing one secret after another. Teachers' hidden affairs, the bullies' past actions, even an illicit relationship between the physical education teacher and the music teacher. Her name was Shin Hyun. It turned out that Shin Hyun wasn't an ordinary person. Since birth, she had been able to see red threads without the help of any device. At first, she didn't understand what she was seeing. As a child, Shin-hyun once drew all the red threads she noticed above people's heads and showed the drawing to her mother, hoping for an explanation. But her mother's reaction was far from expected. Upon realizing that her husband had a red thread connected to another woman, she was overwhelmed with rage and stabbed him to death in front of Shin-hyun. From that moment, Shin-hyun lost both of her parents. Her life changed in an instant. Consumed by guilt for what she believed she had caused, she struggled with despair and even contemplated ending her own life. But strangely, each time she tried, her body would recover as if nothing had happened. Over time, Shin-hyun began to understand what the red threads represented. They were manifestations of the darker sides of the people around her. Unable to bear seeing such hidden filth day after day, she eventually chose to wear dark sunglasses wherever she went. Most of the time she stayed indoors, but each morning she would peek out through the curtains of her bedroom window, observing the people passing by. Among them was Suna, who always walked to school with a single, neatly tied red thread above her head. Her uncle, a police officer, had a far more chaotic appearance. his head covered in dozens of tangled threads. One day, something new caught Shin Hyun's attention. A new neighbor had just moved into the house across the street. Above her head were 9 red threads stretching out in various directions. Moments later, the doorbell rang. Shin Hyun peeked through the door crack. Standing outside was the same woman holding a basket of fruit. In a gentle voice, she introduced herself and offered the fruit as a friendly gesture. But Shin Hyun remained silent. She didn't open the door. Eventually, the woman placed the basket on the doorstep and left without saying anything further. Once the area was quiet again, Shin Hyun brought the basket inside. Inside were 3 brightly colored fruits, smooth-skinned and looking sweet. The next day, the neighbor sent more fruit. As Shin Hyun bit into an apple, she turned on the television like usual. A new segment was airing about a string of serial murders. The victims were all young women, and the locations weren't far from Shin Hyun's own neighborhood. During a live report, the camera caught a glimpse of a man in a helmet standing near the crime scene. One detail stood out to Shin Hyun. He had only a single red thread above his head. It struck her as odd. After committing a crime, returning to the scene suggested a desire to monitor the situation. Shortly after, the sound of a motorcycle engine rose from below her apartment. Peering out the window, she saw the man in the helmet walking toward her neighbor's house, the same woman who had offered her fruit. Her heart pounded. She immediately picked up her phone, ready to call the police and report what she had seen. But the reality turned out to be different from what she had imagined. The man in the helmet was the woman's boyfriend. As the two of them entered the house, Shin Hyun watched as their red threads intertwined, connecting with each other. The following day, police arrived at the apartment complex where Shin Hyun lived. They stated that a report had been filed from one of the units regarding suspected criminal activity. Known as a reclusive tenant, Shin Hyun opened the door only slightly. In a flat tone, she told them the report was a misunderstanding. She then shut the door firmly. That night, the man in the helmet reappeared, this time walking toward Shin Hyun's own building. Through the peephole, Shin Hyun clearly saw him standing motionless, as if he knew he was being watched. At the same time, the police had uncovered a new lead. Each victim had once been connected to the same individual. That person turned out to be a bespectacled man who had earlier spoken politely to the officers. Without delay, the police moved toward his residence for further investigation. The moment they entered, they detected an unusual smell. On the floor were stains that resembled dried blood. The officers quickly contacted Han, the detective in charge of the case, to report their findings. Unbeknownst to them, the man with the glasses was already hiding inside. He struck one of the officers, knocking him unconscious. Han rushed to the location upon receiving the alert. Meanwhile, the bespectacled man put on his helmet, bound the unconscious officer, and left him behind. Without a word, he crossed the street toward the home of Shin Hyun's new neighbor. From her window, Shin Hyun watched everything unfold. The red threads above the man's head had dwindled to just 1. As she suspected, that lone thread was a sign of danger. With no other choice, Shin Hyun grabbed a kitchen knife. She understood what would happen if no one stopped him. Her neighbor would become the next victim. But her steps halted at the doorway. For more than a decade, Shin Hyun had never left her home. Her legs trembled, her vision blurred. As she descended the stairs, she collapsed, her body hitting the ground hard. Meanwhile, the bespectacled man had already reached the house across the street. 10 red threads floated above the woman's head, stretching in multiple directions. Without hesitation, he wrapped his hands around her neck, trying to sever those connections by force. Shin Hyun arrived at the scene, breathless. The man turned slowly, his expression blank. He approached her, snatched the knife from her grip, and stabbed her without pause. Then he returned to his girlfriend. He resumed the attempt to strangle her, but this time, the woman resisted. During the struggle, his glasses were knocked off. The woman crawled toward Shin Hyun, who was lying on the floor, and dragged the man away with all her strength, as if pulling a wild beast. Elsewhere, Han finally arrived at the building. As he passed by Shin Hyun's home, he noticed the walls filled with drawings of red threads. Before he could process what he was seeing, the sound of a violent struggle echoed from across the street. Back inside, Shin Hyun slowly regained consciousness. Her body was weak, but she crawled toward the man and drove the knife into his leg. At that moment, Han took aim and fired his weapon. The bullet struck the man, knocking him to the ground. But even in pain, the man smiled. Shin Hyun saw clearly. The last red thread above his head began to fade, and then vanished entirely. It was then that she understood. Perhaps this man also had the same ability. He too had seen the world of red threads. After that incident, Shin Hyun began to reflect on her power. For the first time in her life, she removed the black sunglasses she always wore. A mysterious message appeared on her phone. The sender was unknown. The message contained only a single sentence that made her freeze. "There are others who can see the world the way you do. Come to the school." The next day, Shin Hyun gathered the courage to begin a new chapter of her life. At her new school, she immediately noticed something. Suna was there too, still wearing the mysterious glasses. Shin Hyun approached her and warned that the glasses were not ordinary, but Suna refused to listen. Unbeknownst to them, behind the partition of the restroom, one of the girls who had often bullied Suna overheard their conversation. A scheme began to form in her mind. She wanted to take the glasses for herself. Without hesitation, she stole Suna's bag and ran off with the glasses. When she put them on, the bully began to see red threads floating above the heads of people around her. Immersed in her sense of satisfaction, she failed to notice the danger that was quietly approaching. Meanwhile, Suna panicked upon realizing her glasses were missing. She immediately contacted Shinhyun. At first, she accused Shinhyun of stealing them, but at that moment, Suna was dealing with another matter. Meeting with the language teacher she had been blackmailing using his dark secret. The teacher arrived in a panic. He begged Sunup to drop the demand for 20 million won. He claimed he didn't have enough money, but Sunup remained firm. She refused to back down in any way. In the middle of their argument, the teacher's phone rang. A message had come in from his wife. Its content was clear. His wife had discovered his affair with one of the school bullies. The teacher immediately assumed that Sunup had leaked the information. In truth, no one else knew except him and the student involved. While the confrontation continued, Shinhyun rushed toward the school building. But when she arrived, the scene before her froze her in place. She saw Suna fall from the upper floor of the school. Her body hit the ground with force, like a lifeless doll. An English teacher named Kim found a pair of glasses placed on his desk. Curious, he asked the homeroom teacher about them, but instead of offering an explanation, the teacher simply handed the glasses back and suggested that Kim keep them. When Kim put the glasses on, a strange sight unfolded. He saw red threads floating above everyone's heads. At first, he took the glasses off, thinking it was nothing more than a trick of the eyes. But moments later, Han walked into the teacher's office, and through the lenses, Kim saw dozens of red threads tightly clustered above Han's head. Kim was going through a difficult time in life. His wedding plans had fallen apart after he discovered that his fiancée had been having an affair with one of his closest friends. Heartbroken, Kim decided to leave everything behind and move to Canada to start anew. Before leaving, he visited his older sister's home to say goodbye. His brother-in-law greeted him kindly and offered drinks. When she turned away, Kim looked at them through the glasses once again. His sister had 3 threads above his head, but his brother-in-law had more than 10, one of which clearly connected him to his sister. From what Kim observed, each red thread symbolized an intimate relationship someone had experienced. After they finished their drinks, Kim and his brother-in-law took the elevator downstairs to buy more. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor. There, Kim noticed one of the threads above his brother-in-law's head stretched far out of the elevator and into the hallway. She had accidentally pressed the button for the 4th floor, but quickly pressed 10 again, saying it was just a mistake. Kim, now suspicious, pressed the button for the 4th floor on purpose. When the doors opened, he saw the thread continuing all the way down the corridor. As he stepped forward, his brother-in-law quickly pulled him back inside. The next day at school, Kim put the glasses on again. He saw threads above the heads of every teacher. He asked the homeroom teacher what she would do if she learned someone close to her was having an affair. The teacher answered that she would reveal everything. Strangely, she had no red threads above her head at all, but the look in her eyes suggested she knew something. Later, Kim returned to his sister's apartment and found a misdelivered package at the door. The address was correct, but the name wasn't. His sister said the parcel probably belonged to someone from Unit 401. Kim brought it to that door. Soon after, a young woman stepped out to retrieve it. Above her head, Kim saw several threads branching out in different directions. A few days later, Kim's brother-in-law didn't come home. His sister claimed that he was away on a business trip. Kim warned him gently, suggesting that someone in his position could easily become a target of temptation. Kim decided to follow him secretly. He soon discovered the man wasn't on any business trip. Instead, he went to a hotel with another woman. Kim called to ask where he was. The man lied, saying he was in a meeting. Kim went up to the hotel floor. Threads of red ran across the hallway, overlapping in a tangled mess. At one of the rooms, he found his brother-in-law with the woman. Caught off guard, the man begged Kim not to say anything. He promised he would end the affair. Hearing this, Kim decided not to tell his sister, for now. Finally, the day came for Kim to leave for Canada. But just before entering the airport, he saw a social media post from the woman in Unit 401. She had announced her pregnancy. Without hesitation, Kim told the taxi to turn around and headed back to the apartment complex. When Kim arrived at the apartment complex, he was met with an unexpected scene. His sister's car had crashed into the car belonging to the woman from Unit 401. His sister appeared completely unhinged. Kim rushed over and tried to calm him down, saying they would find a way to resolve everything. But the truth was far from what Kim had assumed. The woman from Unit 401 wasn't some affair partner. She was actually the legal wife of his brother-in-law. It turned out Kim's own sister had been the third party in the relationship all along. Unable to accept this, his sister had intentionally rammed the woman's car in a reckless act driven by despair. The story then shifted back to Suna, the girl who had fallen from the school rooftop. Miraculously, Suna survived the fall. Although her body suffered serious injuries, her life was spared. She was rushed to the hospital by ambulance and placed in the ICU, where she lay unconscious in a coma. When word spread that another student, Shin Hyun, had been present at the time of the incident, Han summoned him for questioning. However, Shin Hyun didn't provide much information. He was certain of only one thing: Suna would never have jumped on her own. The school administration took a different stance. They insisted that Suna had attempted suicide. The principal even gathered the teachers to reprimand them. But two people were notably absent: the language teacher and a female student known for bullying Suna. Both had disappeared without a trace. Shin Hyun, needing space, went up to the school rooftop. While he stood there, a student named Gyeongjin approached him and began a casual conversation. She told him that Suna had always been isolated, until recently, when she suddenly began making many new friends. Gyeongjin mentioned a theory that in most cases the person who causes harm is usually someone close to the victim. While they were talking, a male student wearing glasses walked by. Seeing him, Shin Hyun grew uneasy. He stopped the student and suddenly inspected the boy's glasses, leaving him confused and startled. Meanwhile, Han continued his investigation. He visited the school again and asked the homeroom teacher about the whereabouts of the missing student who used to bully Suna. Han also showed her Suna's phone, which contained a photo of Suna with her boyfriend. Using this clue, Han was able to track the boyfriend down. The boyfriend explained that right after the photo was taken, Suna suddenly panicked and ran off, saying she had lost something important. Han reviewed the CCTV footage and discovered that during the photo session, the bully had taken Suna's bag. The girl's trail was recorded all the way to the station and then disappearing into a nearby park. This further convinced Han that Suna did not try to take her own life, but his superior refused to believe it. The school's foundation board also insisted the case be closed as a suicide to prevent public scandal. Despite the pressure, Han chose not to give up. At the same time, scandalous photos began to circulate within the school. They showed an inappropriate relationship between the missing language teacher and the bullying student. Things grew even more complicated when a body was found in the basement parking area of the building. The deceased was identified as the missing teacher. Near the body, police discovered a suicide note confessing the affair and expressing shame and remorse that led to his death. Han once again met with Shin Hyun, asking him why he had been at school when the incident took place. But instead of answering, Shin Hyun asked Han about Suna's glasses. The question left Han confused. That night, while rereading the language teacher's suicide note, one sentence stood out. It reminded him of something. He rushed home and searched Suna's room. Inside her desk drawer, he found a notebook. The notebook was filled with strange drawings, faces of people wearing glasses with red threads floating above their heads. Han took the notebook and showed it to Shin Hyun. Upon seeing it, Shin Hyun finally revealed everything he knew about the glasses and the secret of the red threads. Shin Hyun confessed that he had been able to see these red threads since birth. Each thread symbolized an intimate connection that had occurred in a person's life. Meanwhile, Suna had only gained this ability after discovering a mysterious pair of glasses. Shin Hyun believed that Suna's fall from the rooftop had something to do with the glasses, though he remained convinced that she had no intention of ending her life. After reviewing more CCTV footage, Han's suspicion began to grow. He started to believe the incident might be linked to the glasses that had ended up in the hands of the student who bullied Suna. Even so, he struggled to accept the concept of the red threads and continued to dismiss it as a teenager's fantasy. While this was unfolding, Shin Hyun continued to experience recurring nightmares about Suna's fall. To find out more, he applied for a part-time job at the same hotel where the language teacher and the bullying student used to meet in secret. The story then introduced a third person who had come into possession of the glasses: Mi-sung, a school administrative staff member. Like the others before her, Mi-sung was shocked when she wore the glasses and saw the red threads for the first time. Her curiosity soon turned into habit. Mi-sung was the type of person who often felt invisible and emotionally empty. She tried to fill that emptiness by observing the lives of others. At work, she was frequently scolded by her superiors and rarely noticed by colleagues. Quietly, she developed feelings for a kind-hearted music teacher. Those feelings began simply because he once helped her pick up some fallen papers. On weekends, Mi-sung would book the same hotel room repeatedly, wear a pink wig, put on makeup, and stay there alone. That hotel was the same one where Shin Hyun now worked, and occasionally Gyeongjin, who had grown closer to Shin Hyun, also visited the building. Inside the hotel room, Mi-sung often talked to herself, making bold claims about her romantic past. One day at school, Mi-sung heard music coming from a classroom. She walked in and found the music teacher alone. She gathered the courage to speak with him and was touched when he not only remembered her name, but also recalled that she once dreamed of becoming an actress. When she looked at the top of his head and saw only one red thread, she felt a strange sense of connection between them. The following weekend, Mi-sung returned to her usual hotel room. As always, she talked to herself and peered through a small hole in the wall. But this time, what she saw on the other side was unexpected. It was the music teacher, the very man she quietly admired. Not long after, a woman entered the room. Mi-sung recognized her instantly. She was a well-known actress. Above the actress's head floated several red threads. She and the music teacher began to talk, and soon they became physically intimate. Mi-song stopped peeking. The sound of laughter and moans from the room pierced her ears like a whip. A mix of jealousy and fury clouded her mind, pushing her deeper into a dark emotional spiral. One day, she saw the same actress arriving at the hotel. Without hesitation, Mi-song approached her from behind and struck her with a fire extinguisher until she lost consciousness. Then she tied up the actress and dragged her into a room. Mi-song dressed herself in the actress's clothes and headed to the music teacher's room. There she uttered the exact lines she had rehearsed over and over in her mind. The music teacher quickly sensed something was wrong and tried to flee. Mi-song responded by striking his head with a large stapler. She then embraced his body with obsessive intensity. But when she looked into the mirror, she realized that the blow had killed him. In a haze of despair, she began hitting herself with the same stapler. Blood covered her body as her strength faded with each strike. Meanwhile, Shin-hyun, working as a cleaner at the hotel, found the actress tied up inside the room. She had managed to free herself and ran out in panic. After hearing her explanation, Shin-hyun rushed to the music teacher's room and opened the door. Inside, he found two lifeless bodies. With trembling hands, he immediately called the police. Elsewhere, Han continued investigating Suna's fall. He had also begun to re-examine an old case involving Shin-hyun's parents, but a new case had just emerged. Two people had been found dead in the same hotel. Han quickly ordered his team to search every room for the glasses suspected to be at the center of the strange incidents. The search, however, yielded nothing. The glasses were nowhere to be found. Eventually, Shin-hyun revealed the whole truth to Han. She explained that both Mi-song and the music teacher had one red thread each above their heads. But those threads were never connected. At school, Mi-song had always appeared like an ordinary person. But in the hotel, her behavior changed drastically. Shin-hyun believed the glasses were somehow responsible. To her, the glasses carried a curse. That led Han to return to the hotel. There, he inspected the bathroom where Mi-song had died. After cleaning the base of the tub, he found something hidden beneath it. The cursed glasses. At first glance, the glasses looked ordinary. Nothing about them appeared unusual, but when Han put them on and looked in the mirror, he saw something unexpected. Above his own head floated numerous red threads. At that moment, Han realized that everything Shin-hyun had said was true. The glasses had the power to reveal the hidden side of people's lives. 4 red threads floated above a girl's head. They signified connections with 4 different men. Just a week earlier, there hadn't been a single thread. Han was someone who longed for freedom and despised being tied down. His life was a mess, yet there were 2 things that held him back. His father, who suffered from dementia and now lived in a nursing home, and Suna, his young niece. After his older brother and sister-in-law died in an accident, the responsibility of raising Suna fell on him. Now, Suna had been in an accident of her own and was being treated in the hospital. Han carried the guilt with him. His life often revolved around just those 2 people. In between, he started noticing more and more red threads forming above his own head. With his handsome looks and smooth words, those threads began multiplying quickly. To find out who Suna had been involved with, Han brought her boyfriend to the hospital. But the red thread above the boy's head didn't connect to Suna. Han asked if Suna had been seeing someone else. The boy said he didn't know but mentioned that Suna once talked about someone she truly despised, someone she called a demon, someone she wanted to kill. That made Han wonder if she had been referring to him. Later, a girl named Gina came to the police station and reported a case of sexual assault. Han immediately noticed 4 red threads floating above her head. Inwardly, he thought how bold the younger generation had become. Gina explained that about a week ago, she had been drinking with a boy she liked. She lost consciousness, and when she woke up, her underwear was on backwards. She was convinced something had happened, especially since she had never been in a relationship before. Seeing the threads, Han grew suspicious. He took his colleague to the school to investigate the boy Gina had named. The first person they met was the homeroom teacher. There wasn't a single thread above her head. Han was stunned, then impressed by what he saw as her purity. The teacher noticed Han's glasses and commented that they suited him. Han misunderstood. Thinking the teacher might be interested in him, he invited her to dinner. With the teacher's help, Han eventually located the boy Gina had claimed was her boyfriend. He lived alone in an apartment and had once trained to become an idol with Gina. Since then, Gina had been chasing after him, but the boy insisted that he never liked her, let alone dated her. The night of the incident, they drank together, and Gina passed out. He swore he didn't do anything. After a long and fruitless interrogation, Han was getting ready to leave. But by chance, he ran into Shin-hyun again. It was awkward. Han had previously refused to believe anything Shin-hyun said about the glasses. Shin-hyun asked Han to return the glasses, but Han refused. To him, they were now vital evidence. Since putting them on, it felt like he had entered another world. He wasn't ready to let them go. Gina had filed her report a week after the incident. The clothes had been washed. There was no physical evidence. She could even be charged for making a false report. The interrogation hadn't produced anything suspicious either. The boy was about to be released. But then Han remembered something. He returned to the interrogation room. Above the boy's head was a single red thread, but it didn't connect to Gina. Han concluded that Gina had lied and requested that the case not be forwarded to prosecution. That night, Shin-hyun waited outside Han's apartment. She tried to convince Han to get rid of the glasses, but Han explained that they were like a weapon, capable of harm or protection, depending on who used them. Shin-hyun had once saved a woman in the building across the street, and Han had just used the glasses to uncover the truth in a case, protecting a young man from false accusations. Shin-hyun knew that Gina had once claimed to be a victim. Han said she had lied, but Shin-hyun added something important. Just a week ago, Gina didn't have any red threads at all. Han then realized something. This might be a case involving more than one perpetrator. Without hesitation, he headed straight for the apartment of the suspected boy. Inside the apartment, everything looked tidy. The young man claimed he had an obsessive habit of keeping things clean, but Han noticed something off. The bedsheet color didn't match the room. It looked like it had been changed recently. After a brief conversation, Han and his assistant left the apartment and headed to a local thrift store. There they found a used bedsheet that matched the room's original color. This discovery left Han uncertain. Why wasn't Gina's red thread connected to that man? A laboratory test later confirmed that the new sheet contained traces of Gina's blood. The young man argued it could have been from a nosebleed or menstruation. To him, that wasn't sufficient evidence to accuse him. In a casual tone, Han shared a story from his youth. How he used to be popular with women and often went out drinking. He asked what kind of alcohol had been consumed that night. The young man replied that he didn't drink much, while Gina had finished a whole bottle of soju and asked for more. He went out to buy some beer. Han reviewed the CCTV footage. It did show the man leaving to get drinks, and he was gone for a while. Nothing suspicious happened inside the apartment during that time. But then Han noticed something else. During the same period, 4 other men were seen entering the building. Han observed the red threads above each of their heads. When they left the building, each had an extra thread. The next day, Shin-hyun saw those same threads connected directly to Gina. She wanted to call Han, but Han had already arrived at the school. The 4 young men were immediately taken into custody. One of them couldn't take the pressure and confessed. The man Gina referred to as her boyfriend was the ringleader. He had drugged Gina and allowed the others to take turns assaulting her. The case was solved. Han became even more convinced of the glasses' value. He was now completely unwilling to part with them. Shin-hyun began to understand Han's perspective. A weapon can kill, but it can also save, depending on who's holding it. Meanwhile, Han received a call informing him that his father was missing. He rushed to the nursing home and checked the security footage. It showed his father being taken away by the homeroom teacher. In the footage, she looked directly at the camera and smiled. A strange, unsettling smile. Moments later, Han's phone rang again. This time, a photo of Suna was sent to him. Alarmed, he rushed to the hospital while instructing his assistant to look into the teacher's identity. When he arrived, Suna appeared to be fine. Han breathed a sigh of relief, but then the red thread above her head began to shift, moving toward the door. Han realized that someone with a past connection to Suna was approaching. He drew his pistol and aimed it at the door, but the one who entered was his own father. The elderly man called Suna's name and held her hand tightly. Through the glasses, Han saw a red thread connecting Suna directly to him. He remembered what Suna's boyfriend had said. Suna hated someone so deeply she wanted to kill them. At last, Han realized who the demon was. It was his father. A storm of rage and sorrow surged inside him. He shouted at his father, yanked him away from Suna and threw him to the floor. Elsewhere, Shin-hyun stood alone, trembling and bleeding from his hand, trying to reach Han for help. When he first arrived at the school, Shin-hyun hadn't been happy, but Johnson was always there, comforting him, encouraging him. Slowly, her feelings began to grow. She thought that if a red thread ever appeared above her head, she hoped it would be connected to someone she genuinely cared about. That night, Shin-hyun invited Johnson to meet him at a hotel. Johnson felt awkward, pacing back and forth in the room before finally sitting down beside her. Since Johnson didn't make a move, Shin-hyun expressed his feelings and offered his first love. Above them on the ceiling, Shin-hyun saw a single red thread connecting the two of them. Her face flushed with happiness and embarrassment. As they walked outside, they saw people all around with multiple red threads above their heads. But Shin-hyun felt confident in the choice she had made. Johnson said goodbye for a moment. He was going to buy some food and asked Shin-hyun to wait. As Shin-hyun stood by the shop window, she saw the red threads above people's heads. For the first time, she didn't resent her ability. Suddenly, a scream came from nearby. The red thread above his own head started trembling, then vanished. With a sinking feeling, she rushed toward the source of the sound. A crowd had gathered. As Shin-hyun pushed her way to the center, she saw Johnson lying motionless, a long metal rod piercing through his body, fallen from a building above. He was already dead, Beside him was a smashed birthday cake. That day was Shin Hyun's birthday. Just moments earlier, Johnson had been alive. Now all that remained was a lifeless body. Shin Hyun could barely breathe. She believed she was cursed. First her parents, and now the one she loved had also died. Because of her. A message arrived on Shin Hyun's phone. It was a video. In it, Gyeongjin was tied to a chair. The sender instructed Shin Hyun to come to the school. Immediately, she called Han and asked for help. At the same time, Han was dealing with heavy emotions. Shin Hyun told him about the postcards she had received every year. At first, she thought they were from her missing mother, but now she realized that someone might have been waiting for her birthday to come. Perhaps today was the day everything would end. Han remembered the strange smile of the homeroom teacher. After digging deeper, he discovered that the teacher's identity couldn't be traced. He and Shin Hyun went to the school together. Only one classroom had its lights on. They rushed toward it. Shin Hyun entered first and found Gyeongjin tied up. But when Han followed just seconds later, the room was empty. Gyeongjin said Shin Hyun was the one who had asked her to come. Then she fainted, unable to recall anything. Shin Hyun untied Gyeongjin and only then realized that Han was no longer there. She searched, but couldn't find a way out. It was as if he was trapped in a loop, walking the same floor repeatedly. Meanwhile, Han had gone up a stairway to the upper floor and opened a door. What he saw shook him. A group of people dressed in white gathered in a strange ritual. A woman began to speak. She revealed that she had once been a victim of a man who spread explicit videos of her. The entire school had seen them. She had nearly taken her own life until she met the homeroom teacher, who gave her the glasses. Through them, she could see red threads above people's heads. The teacher told her that if she killed every man she had slept with, the threads would disappear. She believed it, and began to kill them one by one. And it worked. Each time, one thread vanished. Then the homeroom teacher appeared, her head covered with countless red threads branching in every direction, like a final boss. The teacher then pulled back a white cloth, revealing a person beneath it. It was Han's father. She handed Han a knife and said that if he killed the old man, he could save Suna. Han remembered the red thread connecting Suna and her grandfather. Fueled by rage, he raised the knife. But at the last second, he turned and attacked the teacher instead. She blocked the blow with one hand and threw Han to the ground. Then she raised the knife and stabbed Han's father. Han drew his gun and fired at her, but the bullets had no effect. She remained standing and told him that ordinary people couldn't kill her. The world, she said, would soon be flooded in red. Elsewhere, Shin Hyun and Gyeongjin reached the rooftop. They didn't see what Han had seen. Shin Hyun admitted that she had the ability to see red threads. Unexpectedly, Gyeongjin turned around and put on her own glasses, the ones given to her by the homeroom teacher. Gyeongjin revealed a secret. If Shin Hyun died, everyone would be able to see the red threads without needing any device. Then she attacked him from behind, choking her neck. Shin Hyun struggled, grabbed her glasses, threw them to the ground, and shattered them. As the glasses broke, Gyeongjin suddenly came to her senses. She was confused, not knowing why she was there. It turned out the glasses had the power to manipulate thoughts. Shin Hyun's blood splattered into the air, weaving itself among dozens of red threads. Shin Hyun appeared in the middle of the white-clad crowd. The homeroom teacher lifted Han's body into the air. Upon seeing Shin Hyun, she threw Han aside. She said that the red threads weren't a curse, but a gift. To Shin Hyun, the red threads had brought the deaths of his parents and his lover. For him, they were a curse. The homeroom teacher explained that everything came from human desires. The crowd formed a circle, preparing to attack. The homeroom teacher raised a knife, ready to strike. But suddenly, a woman stepped in front of Shin Hyun, taking the slash across her back. The woman was Shin Hyun's mother. She was also wearing the glasses. She hadn't killed Shin Hyun's father because of his words, but because she had seen with her own eyes that her husband had cheated. She told Shin Hyun that none of this was his fault, then exhaled her final breath. Filled with rage, Shin Hyun attacked the homeroom teacher, but she managed to stab his stomach. Shin Hyun's blood rose into the air, turning into red snowflakes. Thousands of red threads burst from his body, forming a giant sphere in the sky, then descended to the earth. Shin Hyun's death brought a new ability to everyone. Without any tool, people could now see the red threads. Shin Hyun stood up, slashed the homeroom teacher's face with a knife, then stabbed her in the stomach. But everything was already too late. What the homeroom teacher needed to do had already been done. The red threads in the sky slowly faded. The rooftop returned to normal. Only Shin Hyun, Han, and Gyeongjin remained, as if everything that had just happened had never existed. Elsewhere, people cheered and recorded the sky with their phones. Gyeongjin looked at Han's head, covered in red threads, then stepped back in fear. From that day on, everyone could see red threads. There were no more secrets between people. Many started wearing masks, sunglasses, or thick helmets in public, afraid their secrets would be exposed. Shin Hyun didn't need to do any of that. She was now just an ordinary person like everyone else. Suna eventually woke up. The red thread connecting her to her grandfather disappeared along with the old man's death, her uncle, Han. The man always came to pick her up at school with dozens of red threads on his head, as if trying to show the world what kind of man he really was.